Hey, how's it going, everybody? It is Josh Thomas here from TheBitBlock, and I am joined by Mr. Rogersbase.
What is going on, Josh? I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed that you had a Legend of Zelda review discussion and you didn't have me on. Don't know what's going on in your head.
There's a very good reason for that. You can actually listen to our Legend of Zelda review discussion on your channel.
Oh, that's right. Thanks for the plug, Josh.
I don't know if you set that up or
I
if you
definitely set
legitimately-
that up. No, I set that up.
So listen, Roger, today we are going to be talking about the Legend of Zelda, but we are going to be talking about where does Nintendo take the series from here? This is a question a lot of people have been asking themselves and their neighbors and some of their pets, which is a weird thing.
Their pets? Why would they ask their pets?
Because they're a little bit, cuckoo. So yeah, this is a weird game because it's like I think a lot of people are walking away from Breath of the Wild and thinking this was so fantastic, so fresh and exciting. Where in the world does Nintendo go from here? How do you top this? Roger, go!
So, it was just recently stated in an interview with Aonuma that they want to continue in this direction for the future. He specifically said that he wants to continue in the direction of open world because now he feels like he can't go back after Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. But I am not taking that at face value because if you remember, after Skyward Sword, he mentioned how could you go back from motion controls and then there are no motion controls in Breath of the Wild. So he said this before, so I don't entirely trust what he says, but I hope what he's saying is true this time around because I really want to see another Zelda game in this style, but I don't want to see it for a really long time. And where I think the series is going now, I think it's pretty obvious, actually. I think the next Zelda game that we're going to get is going to be a top-down Zelda game in the style of A Link Between Worlds, A Link to the Past, but it's going to be in HD, it's going to be on the Switch, and I think... And we talked about this a little bit on my review discussion, and I think in another video that we did for your channel. I think it just makes sense for that game to be co-op, and I specifically think it's going to be a co-op top-down Zelda game where you play as both Link and Zelda. Because remember, there was that big controversy regarding Breath of the Wild where people said, why can't we play as Zelda? I think this is going to be their opportunity. The Switch already has 2 controllers built in, so co-op makes a lot of sense. It's not like you have to gather around a lot of people. You just literally hand the Joy-Con to somebody. You won't need to connect things with weird GBA controllers. You won't need to go online to get 2 other friends to play like you needed to in Triforce Heroes. But let's be honest, Triforce Heroes is pretty garbage. Though, Four Swords is pretty amazing. And so yeah, I think the next Switch Zelda game... real Zelda game. I have another idea of where they're going to go with Zelda, but I'm going to save that for later in this discussion. I think the next Switch Zelda game is going to be a top-down 2D Zelda game where you play as both Link and Zelda with a focus on co-op.
So I actually agree that, yeah, the next Zelda game we see released will be, of course, for the Switch, and I think it will be, because Nintendo has multiple Zelda teams. One of them traditionally would work on the handheld games like Spirit Tracks, Phantom Hourglass, and, the Game Boy Advance ones. So I think that team is obviously busy working on something. And they've been... When did Triforce Heroes release? 2015?
2 years ago, I think, yeah.
About that. So it's been a little bit of time before they have really worked on something. I would love to see a multiplayer-focused Zelda game for the Switch. The Joy-Cons are really cool, the way you can just detach it, hand it to somebody. I'd like to see them make it 4 players. I think that would be neat. Because, Four Swords was 4 players. I think one of the criticisms that Triforce Heroes received was why are there 3? Why aren't there 4? And their excuse for that was really lame.
Yeah. I think they could do 4, but I think it's going to be a heavy focus on 2.
Okay. I think that's one of the things, I was very disappointed in Triforce Heroes, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh my god, this is, the real successor to Four Swords Adventures, and then it turned out it was way, way too linear, way too mission-based. The puzzles were very short. It was very formulaic, the way the levels were laid out, too. It was part 1 is you getting your weapon, then you warp to part 2, and it didn't feel the way that it needed to. So I think with the Switch... the way you can just break those Joy-Cons off like a Kit Kat bar and hand it to somebody and play with them. I think that really lends itself to a multiplayer Zelda game. I do love top-down Zelda gameplay as well, which is weird because I'm not usually somebody who likes retro design that much, but I think top-down Zelda still works very well.
So you like Link to the Past?
I love Link to the Past. It's a great game.
That is not something I expected you to hear. Or that I expected to hear from you, I should say. Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, I think top-down Zelda has aged like a fine wine. I think it still works fantastic, and I think it would be just such a great harmony between having this big open-world Zelda, which is like the main series, and then you have this great side game that, is a top-down Zelda title. I will say, though, I do hope that it is more than 2 players, because I think that the fun and mayhem that can arise from 4-player Zelda is great, and I think it works even better than a Mario game, because in a 2D Mario game or even a 3D Mario game, there's a lot of problems that arise, especially 2D, with everybody jumping on each other and getting each other way. But with a top-down Zelda game, there's way more room for people to move around. So I think that'd be cool. And yeah, I just think... You know what I would think would be cool? I don't necessarily think this is going to happen, but I think it'd be neat, is if you had a player selection. Like somebody's the Goron, somebody's the Zora, somebody's the Rito. Is that the bird?
Yeah.
And then somebody's Zelda, somebody's Link. Like you can pick, and they all have different abilities. So if you're the Goron, you're more strong, and maybe you can break certain boulders for the team or something like that. I think that would be really, really cool.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time you could play with different races in a Zelda game. Majora's Mask, you could transform into a Goron, into a Zora, into a Deku Scrub. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to see that. In fact, I would love to be able to play at a Korok at some point in some Zelda game. I think that'd be great. I really want to play a game where you play as a Korok.
Well, you can in Wind Waker very briefly.
Yeah, just for that one temple.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we basically both agree that, I mean, that is what we want, and that's what we expect to happen with, like, the in-between Zelda game. And I'd say that could release anywhere between, like next summer to the holiday season of 2018.
I could see holiday 2018. I don't think it's coming earlier than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, now that we've established that, this is the tough question. Where do they take the mainline Zelda experience from Breath of the Wild, the main studio that works on Zelda?
Yeah, I think it's going to stay open world. And in fact, and without spoiling anything, have you beaten Breath of the Wild?
I have not.
Okay. Again, without spoiling anything, it leaves it pretty open-ended that they can continue on the story of Zelda in this world or this area of the timeline. And so I think they could actually very easily make a sequel game, building upon some of the mechanics that were introduced in Breath of the Wild. And again, I don't want to get too deep into it. We could talk about it off recording for some of my ideas, because I know some of your listeners probably don't want to be spoiled. And I know you don't care about spoilers. So
I don't. I embrace them.
Yeah, but I do think that people who have beaten the game who are listening to this are going to know what I'm talking about. And yeah, that's what I think. I think it's going to stay open world. And I think they realize that they cannot go back from here on out because it's just so good.
I mean, to go back to a linear Zelda as like a new game would be very strange. I still can play Wind Waker and enjoy it. I was playing it just a few days ago for reasons, and yeah, I think it's still great. But it's weird to not have that freedom.
See, but the thing about Wind Waker, I think the reason Wind Waker ages well is because it still has bits of non-linearity. Like, yeah, you can still go to the temples and stuff, but you can just sail for as long as you want. You don't ever actually have to go to those temples unless the boat redirects you to go to the temple. Otherwise, you could just explore. You can go around the Great Sea, see what's going on, find different islands. That's what makes that game so good, and I think that's that and also the art style, I think, are the two reasons why Wind Waker has aged far better than Twilight Princess has.
Yeah, and really, when I think about it, Wind Waker feels like, out of every Zelda game, it feels like it's the one that's closest to Breath of the Wild in the sense that there is that discovery and exploration in that ocean, and, ooh, what's this? There's a new little island here. I'm going to get off my boat and see what it is.
Yeah.
I kind of have that same feeling in Breath of the Wild when I'm, like, sailing or parasailing, I should say,
and I think
or,
it's
like,
because,
on the horse.
I think that's also because they seem the most like the NES original, which is that you're thrown into a giant world and you just are able to explore. And I think at the time, Ocarina of Time was, of course, fantastic, and it still holds up really well. Though I've always been a Majora's Mask over Ocarina of Time person, but that's a different discussion. But I do think that, like, 10, 20 years from now, this is going to become the new standard for Zelda. I think Breath of the Wild is one of those moments where, like, sort of how Ocarina of Time defined the next 10 years of Zelda games, I feel like this is going to define the next 10 years of Zelda games as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I think we do disagree a little bit, though, on this. While I do think that whenever the time comes, they will continue down this direction, I think that for the time being, a lot of their development is going to be placed on DLC for this game. And I think that,
for sure.
I think this to them, and I absolutely agree with this, Breath of the Wild is a platform. It's not a video game. And I think that having played so much of it now, I think, by the way, I've played over 90 hours at this point.
Same, you were not alone.
But having played so much of it now, and I'll remind myself sometimes, like, oh, right, there's DLC coming, and it gets me very excited. Like, I don't want to leave this world anytime soon. I am perfectly happy putting another, like, $60 worth of DLC into this game as, like, the year or year and a half, or maybe even 2 years goes forward.
Yeah, man, we're going to get it, because they already announced they're doing the one that's at the end of the year. Yeah, there's 3 of them. There's one that I think they're adding in a little bit, or it's already been added, right? I don't think it's already. It hasn't already been added. I think it's this summer. And then there's one that's coming in fall, and then the one in winter is like a full-on new story mode.
Well, I think that's the one. I think there's only 2. I think that it listed 3 things, and the top thing was you can get the shirt and
that's
crap.
Right. Okay,
right
so
now.
That's what I was thinking about. That's why I thought one had already come out. Right. So the shirt one has already come out. The one in summer is going to be all that extra stuff, whatever they are, like shrines or challenges or whatever. And then the thing at the ending is going to be that new story thing.
Dungeon.
And I think the new dungeon, new story thing is the thing that excites me the most, naturally. But it's not necessarily just because of the fact that we're getting another giant dungeon, because I like the Divine Beasts, but I actually just like exploring the world of Breath of the Wild even more. I actually really want this extra dungeon or story thing or whatever to precisely place Breath of the Wild on the timeline somewhere. Because I think that's something that I thought would be explained by this point. And it hasn't been, and I've beaten the game and I still don't know, and I've discussed this at length with people, and they still don't know, and Nintendo hasn't officially said it, so I think that would be a really cool time to introduce, or at least to, at the very least, explain where exactly it lands on the timeline.
See, as far as the timeline goes in Zelda games, I couldn't care less.
Oh, I know. I'm sure you couldn't.
I have no idea.
Like, I really want to know. I want to know if this is on like the Twilight Princess line or the Wind Waker. I don't think it's on the Wind Waker line anymore. I think it's either on the Twilight Princess one or the Downfall one, which is like the one that the original Zelda's on. But I don't know. I'm not sure. There's still so many little things in this game that like allude to the other timelines that it's like, where exactly does this take place?
I mean, and I can get why Zelda fans like that kind of stuff. I'm just saying, like, I've never followed any of it.
Right.
What's technically the newest game, like from the timeline perspective?
I think it's got to be this. I think it has to be this. Like, just because we're so far into the future. I'd say on the Wind Waker timeline that would be Spirit Tracks, because they're in like a whole new Hyrule. On the Twilight Princess timeline, I think it's Four Swords Adventures. I think.
Oh, wow.
I think Four Swords Adventures is after Twilight Princess. And on the Downfall timeline, I think it is Zelda 2.
Weird.
Yeah.
And wasn't Skyward Sword considered the first?
The very first. Yeah. So the thing that still stands, like, because they even just recently revamped the timeline a little bit. And the thing they say for sure is that there is Skyward Sword. It goes from Skyward Sword to Ocarina of Time with Minish Cap in the middle. But Ocarina of Time splits the timeline, and then you've got the Wind Waker timeline, the Twilight Princess timeline, and then the original Zelda timeline, like with Link to the Past.
I see.
Yep.
So the thing is, like, when I'm running around in this world, you eventually do reach a point where a little bit of text pops up and says, you can't go any further. And I don't know, like, I have no idea what the technical aspects of this game's design is, but it's not loading stuff that you're not around. It's only stuff that you're within a certain proximity to. I mean, it's a pretty big proximity, but still. Yeah. So my thought is, I wonder if they could easily add new chunks to this map that weren't even there before. Like,
sure.
Like on the side where they say you can't go anymore, could they be like, okay, now with this DLC update, you can. There's a whole new area and a town and everything. Like, is that technically possible? And if so, yes, please. I want that very much.
Yeah, I think if they're going to do that, I could see them doing that north of the mountain ridge with the snowy mountains. Because there's that really big, like, cliff, and then there's just, like, fog that surrounds it. But all the other boundaries kind of make sense because there's like water or there's really, really tall mountains. But that one sort of just seems like this giant open pit. And I think they could put it there if they were going to add another area.
Yeah, there's also the top right of the map I noticed is weirdly cut off. Like, it looks like you should have been able to walk past these rocks, but it's like, no, you can't go any further, which was really weird to me. And there's also some areas I've noticed that just seemed more open and empty than others, and I'm kind of wondering, is it them planning ahead saying, oh, this is an area we could do something with in the future if we choose to?
Yeah, I don't know. So, I know the one thing I do want, the one thing I definitely want, is I want a sail item to be added so I don't have to keep pressing the X button whenever I want to use the Korok leaf to sail. I want them to add a sail, and I want them to expand the ocean area around that tropical town, and I want them to make sort of like a mini Great Sea. That would be cool.
That would be cool. Yeah, I was very surprised you couldn't use the darn ore as well. Like I thought the ore would have been able to be like used.
Can't you?
You can't. No.
Weird.
Yeah, I thought you'd be able. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, that's weird.
So yeah, I mean, for me, that's what I think is going to be happening like the next year or two. We're just going to be seeing them add on to this game, and I am so fine with that. Like,
Yeah, I agree with you in the fact that I think we're just going to get a lot of DLC, and I think this is going to be the mainline 3D Zelda for Switch. I don't think we're getting a second one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think there's a reason. Like, this is good enough. Just keep selling DLC for this. So far, they've only announced 2 DLC packs, but I really hope that they go beyond this.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to. I cannot imagine they wouldn't, because this is the highest attach rate game in the history of Nintendo platforms, more than Mario 64, which is shocking to me. But yeah, it's the highest attach rate game of all time for any of their platforms, and clearly it's sort of taken over the buzz on the internet. Like, everybody's talking about their own little things that they found or discovered in Breath of the Wild. Like, all the characters have all become memes, like Sidon, and, well, who else matters? I mean, Sidon's the best. No one else matters.
Right.
Wally doesn't matter.
Bingo.
But, but yeah, I mean, the game's great, and I would love to see them continue to expand on this, and then sort of to make new Zelda games, they could do like a 2D Zelda. And the big other Zelda experience that I think we're getting on the Switch that we haven't talked about yet, which I alluded to early in this discussion, is I am fairly confident, like 85 to 90% confident, that we are going to be getting Zelda Maker on the Switch.
Okay.
And I have a specific reason for this.
Okay.
So if there was a GDC event that happened earlier this year, where they basically had a roundtable event with the developers of Breath of the Wild. And the developers of Breath of the Wild were explaining how they started to code the game and how they wanted to sort of sell the idea of the game, where you could explore things and you have like this cool physics engine where you could burn down trees and do all this other cool stuff. In order to sell that to the executives, they made a 3D top-down 2D NES Zelda engine. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up that video. If you just look up GDC 2017 Zelda or 2D Zelda or Zelda Breath of the Wild demo, you'll see what I'm talking about. And it looks like a fully fleshed out engine, to the point where I'm like, they definitely didn't just make this to sell Breath of the Wild. It is clear to me that this is going to be a Zelda Maker type game, where you'll be able to have the physics of Breath of the Wild, but make your own like sort of little mini maps in the style of NES Zelda.
Yeah, I did see that video, and I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I really want that. There is the question of like, how do you make that user friendly, and how do you make it to where somebody could make their own puzzles for people to solve? Yeah, I mean, that's the problem I see. Like, it's more difficult to make a Zelda puzzle than it is to make a 2D Mario map. But at the same time, Zelda doesn't really appeal to quite as many like casual non-gamers as a Mario game would. So it's almost like you could kind of get away with it being a little bit more complicated or like a little bit more involved than making a Mario level.
Yeah, and I think they would probably have tutorials. Like, I'm sure there'd be tutorials like, oh, do you want to do this? Or do you want to see how this works? Like, walk through our little demo areas. Walk through these little mini dungeons, and then you figure out sort of how the game works via that experience.
Mm-hmm. They could even just like allow you to edit their own things and change it to your own liking for beginners. And if you're not a beginner, you could just do it from scratch. You know what I mean? Like, just to get people. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Super Mario Maker was a pretty big success on a console that was not. So that is an impressive feat, and I don't think it should be something that ends there. I'd really like to see them continue that on. And I think Zelda would be the next logical step there.
Yeah. In fact, I would make the prediction right now that I think we're going to see a Mario Maker port at E3, and I think that's going to come out this holiday, and I think next holiday is going to be Zelda Maker, and then the year after that will be the next mainline Zelda game, which will be a 2D Zelda.
And then what happens to the Four Swords type game?
That's what I'm saying. That would be the next 2D mainline Zelda. So that instead of being next year, which I don't think it will be, I think it would be like 2019, and next year would be Zelda Maker.
See, I could see them putting more time between a Zelda Maker and a Mario Maker port, because they wouldn't want it to seem like there's so many Maker-style games.
I kind of think they would want to jump off of the hype of Super Mario Maker. That's my mindset.
Well, that hype is dead at this point.
Right, but I think if they re-release it on Switch, which is a system that now there's a lot of people who never played Mario Maker because they bought a Switch and didn't have a Wii U, I think they'll get that excitement for this holiday, and then next holiday they'll be like, hey, did you like Mario Maker last Christmas? Well, good news for you, we've got a Zelda Maker. And then by that point, people will be like done with Breath of the Wild, or mostly done with Breath of the Wild, and they'll be like, oh, I'm craving a new Zelda experience, but it's not really the full new Zelda experience, and they know that they enjoyed the Mario Maker experience they had the previous holiday, so they're going to want to sort of transition into Zelda Maker. But what do I know?
The way Nintendo operates, though, they would probably have the team that made Mario Maker working very closely with the Zelda Maker game. I think
agree,
that they
but
would separate those teams.
I don't think the team working on bringing Mario Maker to Switch is the main Mario Maker team. I think that's like a special port team.
Well, whoever worked on the 3DS game did a pretty bad job.
Yeah, that game was terrible. Yeah.
But see, do you think Nintendo would do that then? That means that Super Mario Maker would be on Wii U, ported to the 3DS, and then ported to the Switch. Is it possible we just won't see a port of Super Mario Maker, and maybe down the line we get a sequel to that, but we see Zelda Maker before that?
I mean, that is... I really think we're getting Super Mario Maker at E3. I don't know. I feel like really confident that that's going to be something...
A sequel or a port?
A port, for sure.
That would suck.
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting, though. I think there's going to be a huge focus on games at E3, and there's going to be a lot of cool new stuff. But I think Mario Maker, there's so much content there already that they're going to probably make a port of that game. But we're getting off topic. This is a Zelda discussion. This isn't a Mario Maker discussion.
Well, it's a Zelda Maker discussion.
I guess, but I do honestly believe we're going to get a Zelda Maker on Switch at some point.
I mean, I'd like to see that. Yeah. And being able to switch the styles would be cool.
Yeah, and I think after I saw that engine, where it was like really a 3D game, but they just rendered it to look like it was 2D, I think they could very easily make 3 different engines where you have one that looks like NES Zelda, one that maybe looks like Game Boy, and then one that also looks like Super Nintendo, like Link to the Past. I think
they could also do cool Four Swords kind of a style.
Four Sword style would be cool.
Well, that's maybe a little bit more, I don't know. I would like that style more than Super Nintendo, I think, but still, either way.
Yeah. I think I would rather have Super Nintendo. I think I'd rather have the Four Sword style instead of like a Game Boy style, but I think I would definitely want Link to the Past style above Four Sword style.
Well, no, what they would do is they would probably do original Legend of Zelda, then they would do Super Nintendo, and they would probably do a 3D version like a Link to the Past. Or not a Link to the Past. What's the 3DS game? Where Link goes...
Link Between Worlds.
Link Between Worlds. Yeah, I can see them doing right. Like that kind of a 3D.
Link Between Worlds kind of already has that new Super Mario Brothers kind of look to it. Like, I don't want to call it that because I really don't like the generic look of the new Super Mario Brothers games.
It looks better than that.
Yeah, it looks much better than that. But it's basically like when I first saw the trailer for Link Between Worlds, I was like, oh, this is basically new Legend of Zelda. Like, that's how it comes off to me. You know, it's like all the edges are really rounded. It's very colorful,
plasticky.
Highly saturated, plasticky. Yeah, for sure. So I would actually be okay with that. I think that would be cool if they had that as a mix of the 3: NES, Link to the Past, and Link Between Worlds. That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're getting me excited for a Zelda Maker now.
I really do want them to do that, and I think they're smart enough to come up with ways to kind of streamline it, but not to the point where it becomes lifeless. So I think they can do that. Yeah. I mean, to recap, I would say I can see them adding a lot to Breath of the Wild through DLC in the next year, maybe a little bit more, and I am perfectly happy with that. And I can see them making a game with the handheld team, which is like a multiplayer Zelda experience from a top-down perspective. And frankly, I mean, I think that now that you mentioned that little demo they showed, I would be surprised if that's all it was and they didn't say, hey, we can do stuff with this. Let's take this little demo we made and flesh it out and make it a whole thing, and let's try out Zelda Maker.
And wasn't that how Mario Maker even came into being? Wasn't it that was like some development tool?
So it came into being because they had continued to create this development tool for new Super Mario Brothers games, and eventually it just got so easy to use that they're like, oh my god, we can just make a game out of this.
Yeah, so I mean, that just right there, knowing that that's the background of Mario Maker, and then knowing how they were explaining, like, making that engine to test out Breath of the Wild physics, it seems very obvious to me. Like, I saw that video and I was like, oh my god, are we getting a Zelda Maker on Switch? So to me, it's like, it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I never really drew the connection there, but now that you have, I really want that, and I think it could work.
Because even if you listen very closely in that video, like, they have old Nintendo sound effects, but there are new sound effects in that video, and the graphical style of it is clearly not just like a test. It is, I mean, they made like a new engine to make it look like a 3D 2D Zelda game. And why would they just bother doing that? Why wouldn't they just do a 2D engine and then use the physics of Breath of the Wild? They wouldn't need to have it so it looks semi 3D. Like, what would be the point of doing that unless that's for a game?
Mm-hmm. Well, even if the point was to do it just for the demo, I can see them having a eureka moment after they put it together to where they're like, wait a minute, what we did here is pretty cool. This could maybe be a game itself. Yeah. So, I mean, either way, I'm strongly suspicious of that.
So if that's, while we're talking about this then, Zelda Maker, that multiplayer-focused 2D one, that's a mainline title, and then Breath of the Wild, do you think that's going to be the extent of Zelda on Switch, or do you think we're going to get more than 3 in its lifetime?
I think that kind of rounds out the I mean, unless there's another Hyrule Warriors, but they've already moved on to like different franchises for that.
They already
have
Fire Emblem, yeah.
I kind of feel like they exhausted Hyrule Warriors because they did so much with it on like the 3DS and even the DLC on the Wii U that it's kind of like, yeah, just let that be. And they're moving on to Fire Emblem. So yeah, I mean, I personally think those 3 games would be the extent of main kind of Zelda titles.
And then, of course, once they add Virtual Console, they'll have all the the old Virtual Console games on there too, yeah.
Oh, you know what? They will remaster something, I'm sure. I think there will be a remastering of one of the games or something will be remastered for Zelda. I can see that potentially happening.
I actually kind of think we're going to get Skyward Sword HD.
Okay.
I feel pretty strongly that that's going to be something we'll get at some point. I don't think it'll be soon, but I think it'll be like in a down year when we don't have a Zelda game and they want to release something. I think we're going to get that because I have a strong feeling we're probably not going to have Wii Virtual Console on the Switch. But because we know now through World of Goo that the Joy-Cons can work with one-to-one motion, it seems kind of like a natural fit that they're going to end up putting Skyward Sword on there.
Yeah, I think that would be a good port.
Yeah.
I think that would do it.
And they could put in HD.
I love the controls in that.
Yeah, game. I do too. I like Skyward Sword a lot. But I recently went back and tried to play it after playing Breath of the Wild, and I was like, wow, this is nowhere near as good.
Low resolution. I imagine it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
Comparison. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I think that's a good one to
But I like the music. I like the music, and I think it's crucially important for like the Zelda timeline and for new fans of the series that they know like the origin story of the Master Sword. And it just seems like the kind of game that would look really nice on a new HD home console. So
yeah, I mean, and another thing that I think a lot of us don't consider is that a large portion of the people that owned a Nintendo Wii did not actually have a controller that had Wii Motion Plus in it.
Yeah.
I know that seems strange because even towards the end, they were pretty much just selling Wii Remote Plus controllers, but the majority of the people who owned a Wii got in within like the first 3 years before that really kind of even existed.
Yep.
So this, on the Switch, you have it built into the default controllers, so that gives more people a chance to play Skyward Sword. So I think that would work quite well.
Yeah, and I think the Switch kind of has the opportunity to become the quintessential Zelda system if they position it correctly. Because we pretty much already know that Virtual Console is going to consist of Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and GameCube, probably. Those are like the ones that pretty much everyone agrees.
Better.
We're going to get those 3. I don't know about... Well, they'll probably do N64 too. And if they do N64...
I think they will.
Yeah, they probably will. If they do N64 and GameCube, and they do NES and Super Nintendo, that means we'd probably get on Virtual Console Zelda 1, Zelda 2... Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, an HD remaster of Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, Zelda Maker, and that new 2D one we talked about. That is incredible.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like the game. So yeah, there'd be Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Yeah.
GameCube.
The only thing that would be strange. The only thing that would be strange is they did make HD versions of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess not too long ago, but these would be downloadable games. So
yeah, I don't think they would port the HD versions over.
Right.
I think they would just be
the
like
original.
Virtual. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I would actually be fine with. I like the original. I mean, I love Wind Waker HD. I think it fixes some of the problems of the original, but I still love the original Wind Waker. And to be able to play that on the go would be amazing. Yeah. Like the idea of portable Wind Waker is really cool to me.
Yeah, that almost makes me wish I could play Wind Waker HD on the go.
Yeah.
Because visually it is so much better, I think,
stunning,
just because it's in HD, and I think they improved the lighting a bit and stuff. But yeah, yes to all of that.
See, who knows, though? Maybe they'll just end up throwing that stuff on the eShop anyway. I mean, time will tell, you know?
They could. Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely could. Look at it this way. You cannot play a Wii U disc on the Switch.
Right.
But you could download a Wii U game on the Switch. So I think there's a potential that there might be some select Wii U games that they put for download on the Switch that they have no intention of like remastering. You're not going to remaster Wind Waker HD.
No, yeah, that would make no sense.
But you could sell it digitally on the system. There's no reason they couldn't. So I could see them doing Wii U downloads, but not a ton, but enough to make it a thing that they do on the eShop.
I agree.
Yeah. I hope this turns out to be a massive console for Zelda fans, because I really feel like it's weird, because I think like with Breath of the Wild, Zelda has hit some sort of a nerve amongst many, many people to where it feels bigger than it did in recent memory.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Skyward Sword I really liked, but it didn't feel like a huge release that tons of people were talking about. Now, I mean, like Nick, for example, hated Zelda, yet I have to like kick him out of my house at 4 a.m. to stop playing Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, listen to your discussion, yeah.
And he loves the game, and it's just like, man, there's something going on with Breath of the Wild where it's really reaching a larger audience than Zelda has since maybe like the N64 or the NES.
I was going to say,
really
I was going to say the last time I felt the mainstream sort of latch onto Zelda like this was when they announced Twilight Princess at E3 2004. That was the last time where I feel like it hit that total mainstream, oh my god, there's a new Zelda game coming out kind of thing. And then by the time Twilight Princess released, it didn't really have that because it was like 2 years delayed and had all these issues and people just weren't as excited. But I do think that Twilight Princess, once it was announced that it was coming to Wii, did actually hit that mainstream. Because everybody who got a Wii basically got Wii Sports and Twilight Princess, and I feel like a lot of people talked about Twilight Princess. And then sort of like what you mentioned, Skyward Sword kind of died down, and I feel like it does that with Zelda. I feel like every other mainline Zelda, I should say, not including the handheld ones, feels like that. There's always sort of like this resurge of the mainstream audience that's getting back into it again. And yeah, I feel like Breath of the Wild has recaptured what a lot of people felt playing Twilight Princess on Wii for the first time. So,
yeah, and I think another thing that Breath of the Wild has that no other Zelda game has had since the original game is there is a discussion going on about it amongst people. Like, hey, did you know you can do this? Oh, did you discover this? Look, I did this. There's there's like a social aspect to Breath of the Wild that really I don't think any other Zelda other than the original had going for it. Maybe the Super Nintendo game, but still.
I was going to say you could kind of make the argument for the Wii U ones because they had the Miiverse communities, but I mean, that's nowhere near like the level of playground chatter that you're talking about.
Right, that's not like the mainstream populace of, you know, just people that generally wouldn't be talking about Zelda. I mean, you know. So yeah, I think this is definitely a great time for the series, and I hope Nintendo really takes advantage of it by, you know, basically doing everything we said in this discussion.
Yeah. 3 big Zelda games, Zelda Maker, 2D Zelda, and Breath of the Wild with continued DLC, plus all the old Zelda games on a virtual console. I think that sounds great.
Yep. I am down. Roger, thank you for having this chit-chat with me about Zelda.
Well, you're welcome, buddy. Anytime.
You want to know, or you want to tell them where they can follow you?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Rogersbase on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Instagram. I think you know this by this point, though. I've been on how many discussions with you, Josh? I feel like we've talked about this ad nauseum.
But what is your second channel?
Oh, right. I have a second channel, Game and Vlog. We are about to hit 5,000 subscribers on that. That's pretty cool. And I just opened that, too, so I think that's doing pretty well for a new channel opening. Yeah, and that's where I'm posting gameplay videos and my Roger Ramble series that Josh loves so much. So
I do crunches to Roger talking in videos. How's that for weird for you?
That's very weird. You know,
Roger,
this is actually funny. This is a funny way to end it. I recently found this out, that the third most searched thing for when you search my name is Rogersbase, Rogersbase One Piece, and then the third thing is Rogersbase gay? ? And I think the weird stuff that we say on this discussions, that's probably why that's the third most searched thing.
Well, and all those pictures that we took and put on the internet when we were in a hotel room together in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, that might have done it too.
I think one of the top searches for the BitBlock is also BitBlock gay.
I know. It's like
it's Animal Crossing, Tomodachi Life, Wii Fit, BitBlock gay.
It's funny too because I think like we are two of. I mean, just in terms of how we talk off camera, it's like we are probably two of like the straightest people that I know.
Right.
But it's funny because we have that sort of oh, well, Zelda and Animal Crossing, yay! Like, I love Animal Crossing. Let's decorate our house, Joshy. And it's like, it comes off so weird, but
Well,
whatever,
I think the
man. I
problem
wouldn't
is
change it. I love you, buddy. I wouldn't change it.
I think the problem is whenever people see two people getting along very well with like chemistry, they don't think, "Hey, these are good friends." They think they're gay.
That's true. I
Which is
definitely
weird
have
to
better
me.
chemistry than you and Nick do at theme parks, for sure. We definitely have better theme park chemistry.
You mean me and Dan? Dan did not like going to theme parks very often with me.
Oh, Dan, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is another discussion in the can.
Boom.
Thank you for listening, guys. Hey, E3 is like 2 months away.
That's right. Are you still coming for E3?
I think so.
Yay! All right, good stuff.
Still completely undecided, but we'll
Good
see.
stuff, man. That is gonna be a weird house with you, Etika, and Matt, and it's gonna be crazy.
Until next time, we'll get talking about E3 pretty soon in these discussions. I think.
Definitely.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Bye bye.